Hey folks, what's going on? It's me, Andrew Westmoreland, back again with another stream. Today I'm going to be talking about quite a few topics. I have a lineup, basically. Try to get more topics in here and have this a little bit more organized. Before I really get into the main topics, let's just talk about other quick little events that have been happening. I just have this weird sense of foreboding. It just feels like tensions are getting to such an extreme degree, such a high. I don't know how much longer we can take this before, it's this huge social breakdown, this huge kind of like societal collapse in the sense of, it's getting into the warmer summer months. We're probably going to start seeing more protests and riots, and especially when the Roe v. Wade thing is overturned, definitely going to get riots. I think we're getting in territory of assassination attempts, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we're here, but I do think that is a big possibility. So, just trying to share these links out. Please bear with me if you are watching live. Okay. All right, so let's get into this first story here. I don't anticipate a lot of people watching at 9:18 in the morning Eastern time, but we still need to talk about this. And I want to definitely get these stories out there because we need to talk about it. It's important. Not a lot of people were talking about the Pentagon hearings, the congressional hearings yesterday that had Pentagon officials testifying basically about UFOs. I haven't been able to watch the whole hearing. I maybe watched 20 minutes of it. I would like to watch more. But basically, why this is important is because people automatically think UFOs, or UAPs as they call them now, unidentified aerial phenomenon. They keep changing the name because, UFO has the stigma of like flying saucers and little green men coming out of, they're from outer space. Well, sure, that is possible. And, I'm a huge science fiction fan, and, I understand what current science says and on how big the universe is, as much as a human capacity can understand such a vast amount of space and mathematical numbers. It's, from our point of view, infinity. Okay? We know there's a boundary, or as far as we can tell, there is a limit to what is observable reality, but from our perspective we're insignificantly tiny compared to it. So to say that we are the only life in this universe is, frankly, it's just absurd. It's just absurd, mathematically absurd. It's improbable, implausible, damn near impossible. If true, it'd be like, okay, well, that's kind of boring. Do we have to colonize the entire universe? Like, that would be really, really boring. In that case, you can interpret that all kinds of different ways. But to me, I would be looking at this from a practical standpoint because, even if you get into the Drake equation and stuff like that, when you're trying to calculate how many different uh, civilizations there could be in the universe, how many, not even civilizations, just life forms out in the universe, of planets that are orbiting in the right distance around a star to get you a habitable zone, has the right chemistry on the planet, all that stuff, but the right conditions, and you can get, it's tens and tens of thousands, it's not hundreds of thousands, for civilizations, when you do the math. And as far as, like, life, all the way down to single-celled organisms, there are millions and millions and millions. Okay, space is so incredibly big. This conversation is absurd to me to think that we're the only ones out here. So I get that, but the ability to travel faster than light, or have the technology to create quantum singularities or wormholes, or to warp space time to be able to, traverse the stars faster. That level of technology is like a level. I want to say it's a level 2 civilization. It might be a level 3. It's so ridiculously advanced. Like, from our point of view, it's like 50,000 years in the future. That's what they're claiming anyway. Because I think technology does hit a roadblock after a certain point, and I think we're hitting one right now. But that it kind of happens because culture and society and politics hit a roadblock. There is an impasse. We have reached a certain level to where we just start regressing backwards, and our politics and our culture is holding us back from technological advancement. And I think we're advancing some things. I'm saying it's starting to slow down. Like, for a while there, for maybe 20 years, we're like, oh, computer technology doubles every 2 years. It's like, yeah, that's mostly true, but now we're getting to a point like we can't really make smaller microchips. We're just hitting roadblocks. We're gonna have to get, like, into next gen technology where we go quantum. We're going so small. We're going atomic microchips and stuff like that. And to a degree, we can manipulate nanoparticles and stuff, but we're not quite there. If we can reach that point, then we're getting to the next gen of, all right, now we can start figuring out how to, travel space much faster, and more efficiently, and all that, which we are getting there. But again, when we're talking about here on Earth of UFOs, well, the amount of civilizations that have the potential to go faster than light, or however they traverse the stars quickly, okay, that level of technology would be incredibly limited. Like, meaning, like, there's very few civilizations that would probably have that. And the way we know how energy moves out in the universe, we're talking about millions of years before, light from our planet, potentially a billion years of light from this planet. So I hope that is a fire that was planned and not intentional. Hold on one second. Looks like somebody threw a cigarette in a dumpster that was full of wood and trees and stupid stuff. So, I'll say this. When it comes to the UFO phenomenon and stuff here on Earth, the most plausible explanation would be that it's not aliens, that it's like just China or Russia, or maybe even America's own tech. And they're just pretending like, oh, we don't know what this is. And then kind of like, maybe this is aliens, but that's what they used to do, right? They would seed the stories of, oh, flying saucers. It was basically just most likely tech that they were developing. Stuff like the stealth bomber and, B-2 bombers and stuff like that. They look like something out of science fiction, at least for the time when they were being created. So if somebody saw it being tested and they see it flying overhead, they're going to be like, what is that? And you see it in the news, well, maybe it's aliens. So, military application, or a military standpoint, a defense standpoint, it's a serious military threat that we have these objects flying in the sky that we don't know what they are. And the government is starting to get away from the concept or the idea that it's aliens. It's like, well, yeah, it's possible, but the likely scenario is that it's foreign military assets in the air, some next-gen technology. Maybe there is electrogravitics that is actually real and not just conspiracy theories. Maybe somebody did finally break anti-gravitics, and maybe that could account for some of this stuff. I don't know. Obviously, we don't know, but taking it seriously is a step, because we're like, oh, that's just aliens. Oh, it's just UFO talk. It's just silly. It's just nonsense. Well, I mean, what happens if it is a legitimate military threat and you're ignoring it? That's a problem. All right. So, again, I think this is important. I believe they're going to be making a new, I think it's beyond a task force. I think they're going to be creating a new organization inside of the DoD. Let's see, Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security. And then you have the Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence who testified. Yes. I'm just trying to find this. There's a spot in here. I was watching it. Oh, I wasn't watching live, but I was watching it prior to this. And yeah, they were going to make some kind of... yeah, here we go. It is a task force. Last year's report, okay, that was last year, but Office of the Director of National Intelligence and the Pentagon's UAP, because they don't use UFO anymore, the task force found no evidence to suggest the objects are extraterrestrial or from a foreign adversary. Okay, well, that's problematic. Okay, so you don't know if they're extraterrestrial or from, like, China or Russia. That's problematic. There's a third option. It could be a private company who has billions of dollars at their disposal and just happened, they were able to crack it. Anti-gravity tech or something. And they were able to figure some of this shit out and are just trolling. It's possible. But the other problem I see with this is, if it's not military, foreign military, or even American military, and they're just pretending like we don't know what it is, keeping stuff like this on a lid is hard. It's really hard to do. Now, one of the examples people like to bring up is the Manhattan Project, where there were, thousands of people working on the project. Well, of course, somebody's going to say something, but they compartmentalized so well that, oh, you're working on this one little component, you're working on this little component, and you didn't know or interact with the other people whatsoever. You're working in separate places all over the country, and it came down to, you're working on this part, and then you would have a very, very small team, the top scientists and experts and officials, who, they're assembling it. They know what the plan is, what the goal is. So it's possible that is a situation here that, that could explain or solve for that problem. Infused Decipher says, what I find interesting is when Rep. Gallagher asked about the reports of ICBMs being shut down by UAPs during tests, they denied any knowledge of it. See, I didn't get that far in the hearing yet. I think, like I said, I'm only about 20 minutes in, so I'm definitely going to go back and watch more of it. But I mean, I've heard that before, and it's just kind of one of those things like, we can't confirm it. I can't say like, oh yeah, that absolutely happened. It's like, yeah, there's some people who've claimed that. I don't know their credentials or how credible these people are. And I always take this stuff with a grain of salt, except for these official type of acknowledgments, which is still pretty new. This is not something that is, has been going on for 20 years in the sense of, oh, we have every year we're going to have this update on UFO phenomenon. It's like, no, this is a very new thing that they're acknowledging this problem. But I'm glad they are, because it absolutely is a national security issue. It's we have these objects in the sky that, at least as far as top level government is concerned, officially, they have no clue what it is. They don't know whose it is. That's a problem. Good morning, Lance Corporal Veteran. And you said you sent this video about these instances 2 weeks ago, like we discussed. Where did you send it? Because I don't remember this. But let's continue. They showed some video from fighter pilots. I believe probably naval fighter pilots. The Navy. I'm pretty sure the Navy flies more jets than the Air Force does. It's ridiculous. But maybe that's a bias from my area, because Navy here at the carriers and the Naval Air Base and stuff like that. But they were showing videos, and yeah, here's one of them where there's objects that are just going at stupid speeds. And actually, we could play this. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you would describe some of this stuff other than that looks fairly like a spherical. There might be some thing on the top or bottom that's poking out, but again, it's like really hard to say what this crap is. Probes. Did somebody figure out how to do like a fancy drone that uses electrogravitics? I don't know. It's just like it's all speculation. There's some they were showing that are like triangle like objects flying, and they're claiming that the only reason they're triangular is because of they do believe that they were drones. Somebody was flying drones, some privately made drones or something that's not commercially available to the public. And just the way the night vision and the camera interacted, it made them triangular for some reason, which is, that seems a little off to me. Like, I don't really understand how that would happen, but yet here we are. That's really all I had to say on that. Again, if you missed the first part, that's kind of understandable. But I want to move on to the next story here. So, I believe we're going to monkeypox. We're talking about monkeypox. So, there's a monkeypox outbreak in the UK, which I would imagine is going to start spreading in other locations as well. And I remember hearing about monkeypox I was probably a child I remember hearing about monkeypox. But it was never really a concern because, I was a child. But one of the biggest things that, I try to tell people is I've never said I was against vaccines. I'm against forcing people to take experimental medications and vaccines, which Democrats primarily were trying to do. There is a monkeypox vaccine, essentially. Okay, it is for smallpox. If you got the smallpox vaccine, you are probably going to be protected against monkeypox because they're very similar. They're in like the same viral family. So I don't know if it's a concern. You can talk to your doctor and see. My understanding, again, YouTube is very, very strict about talking about vaccines and medical information, so I'm trying to choose my words carefully. But my understanding is traditional vaccines that you got as a child last something like 50 plus years. They're basically lifelong vaccines. The research I did look at, or searches, basic searches, will tell you something like they might recommend that you get a booster shot, or honestly, basically getting the vaccines again in your 70s. If you got them as a small child in the 80s and 90s, they recommend when you're about in your 70s that you talk to your doctor and see if they recommend getting another dose. Other than that, they basically last your whole life. But monkeypox is not a joke. Monkeypox is really gross. It let me see. Full body lesion. They're blisters. Let me see. Is it going to show me images? They're gross, but I wouldn't say, like full body blisters. Is it playing audio now? Okay. It's gross, right? But this is preventable, and I try to tell people too. It's like I understand the aversion to medications and vaccines and stuff, especially when you have creepy weirdos who were talking about limiting population. That's getting a little too graphic for my tastes. But you have to do your research on this stuff. You have to look and figure out what's right for you, and do you want a situation where you have those lesions and pox all over your body, very painful blisters? Probably not. And the chances of you getting sick from a vaccine, a traditional vaccine, I'm not talking about this experimental crap for COVID. I'm talking about traditional vaccines are typically fine. Lance Corporal Veteran says you have a smallpox vaccine from the military. It's left me with a now mostly faded scar. Yeah, and some of them do. That's very true. Some of them will cause a scarring. Correct me if I'm wrong, but ones like the smallpox vaccine will give you like one little blister pock, because traditionally they would give you a dead virus, right? And your body reacts to that dead virus. So yeah, you're basically giving you a dead version of smallpox, and you'll get one little blister pock where the injection was, and then it heals up. That's my understanding how a lot of those old vaccines were. I can't really say anything about the ones I got as a child, but I don't think I have any scars or anything from the stuff I got as a kid. He said how it's administered is the dip a needle and then they prick you a few times and it leaves a faint scar. So that would be like an inoculation then. Different than a vaccine, I'm assuming. Because, there is a difference between inoculation and vaccine. I know they've been inoculating since 1700s, like George Washington era. I believe Washington forcibly inoculated his troops, and many of them died because it's a dangerous way to do that. Hold on one second. I'll be. Sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, I mean, again, this is one of those situations where there are real diseases and pandemics and things that are they're scary, right? Isn't this bullshit, that we experienced the last 2 years? And I say bullshit in the sense that yeah, actual people were dying. I had family members who died, stuff like that, and it's it's serious, but smallpox affects all generations, right? Well, this is monkeypox. It's very similar. It affects people of all ages and all demographics. This is a real problem versus the crap we dealt with the last 2 years. Mostly dealt with super fat people and old people and already sickly people. So I guess what I'd say is double check with your parents if you're already in your 20s, 30s, 40s. Hey, did I get what vaccine did I get? And you can always talk to your doctor, and they might recommend, well, if you don't know what vaccines you got as a child, they might recommend that you get some kind of a reduced vaccine or a booster or something, instead of a full dose. Or they might just be like, well, we can give you a full dose. Who knows? So let's see, how bad is it though? They're saying that the monkeypox is a STI, as they're sexually transmitted infection, most likely in the UK. Interesting. They said it's unprecedented, and there's gaps in knowledge. They're seeing it in London and Northeast England. None of which have known connections to the previous 3 infections detected. Well, that's concerning. That means somebody's spreading it that's asymptomatic or something, which I don't know how that works with stuff like smallpox and monkeypox. Can you be asymptomatic spreader, like not having the massive blisters and lesions on your body? It's really interesting. It says, as a typically mild, self-limiting viral disease, which does not easily spread between people, the risk posed to the general population is low. But, emphasis on but, the sudden emergence of cases and uncertainties around how and where the individuals contacted the virus has left scientists puzzled. So, again, if you are properly vaccinated against smallpox, maybe that's not part of the... Actually, let's look that up. I want to be very clear on this because I'm not even sure that we vaccinate for smallpox. Smallpox vaccine children. Yep, we do not. That is okay. Well, I answered the question. The smallpox vaccine is no longer available to the public. In 1972, routine smallpox vaccination in the United States ended. In 1980, the World Health Organization declared smallpox had been eliminated. Because of this, the public doesn't need protection from the disease. However, they might start making that vaccine because it should have a very high efficacy rate for monkeypox. So, well, there we go. We don't get a smallpox vaccine unless, Lance Corporal Veteran said he got it in the military, but They don't just give it to everybody. So that's interesting. Um, yeah, I mean, we can talk about everything in Fuse Decipher. Um, yeah, it's okay. He said one thing to not get sidetracked on is while the government is somehow somewhat new to having hearings about this, they've had them a few times in the past, but we're not taking it seriously. Yes, and you also need to understand that there are closed session hearings in Congress. Some of those fun action movies, they have like I don't know how real it is. I think they may have made it up, or I don't know. But basically, it's a closed session of Congress for like the intelligence community. I think it was Sum of All Fears is the neat one, and they're in this glass room inside of a room that's soundproofed, and when they start the hearing, they close the shutters so nobody from the outside can see, and then there's armed guards and everything. Um, and it's it's a private thing. They do have stuff like that. Now I don't know, do they have a special chamber for this kind of stuff or not? I couldn't answer that, but I'm sure they've talked about this for 50 plus years, since the 50s, 70 years ago. Absolutely, I'm convinced of it, just not publicly. So yeah, absolutely. But remember, this phenomenon has been going on since the mid 1940s, so the government has 75 years of explaining to do with cover-ups. Do not get tricked into thinking this is just anything. Absolutely, absolutely. If you want to talk about historical references, we can go hundreds or thousands, if not more, years of UAPs because there are hieroglyphs of crafts in the sky in Egypt. I mean, that gets into the ancient alien stuff, which I think is mostly trash. Just because of the way it is framed in like the TV show and stuff. But I do think there's a legitimate basis to have a conversation around. There are definitely pictographs in Mexico for the Aztecs. The Incas, I'm sorry, the Mayas, I believe, were more Central America. I could be wrong. Somebody correct me. And Incas and South America. But they have pictographs, which are basically hieroglyphs, that are depicting what I can only describe what looks like a rocket ship. So this is real. Like, this stuff is real. It's known. There are weird things in Egypt that I have seen that could easily be interpreted by modern eyes as things that they should not have had back then, which I totally get. In India, their main holy text has just depiction of these flying chariots, the Bible, flying chariots. The Bhagavad Gita, I think it's what it's called in for the Indian text. They have these flying. I think one of them even describes like a flying city, like it's gigantic thing. So it's possible. I mean, is it also possible that they had science fiction back in the day? They just didn't call stuff like that. Where you had storytellers that just had fantastic imaginations. I don't know. I guess when I look at this stuff, it makes me wonder how much of this is pure fiction and how much of this is actual history. Because our modern take on things, we read like biblical stories and these religious texts and just think, oh, that's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous. But when you start filtering it through other lenses, you're like, that's actually more probable or it's possible. I mean, it would be the biggest, paradigm shift on the planet, and we'd have a massive existential crisis. I truly believe millions of people would self-delete themselves if they found out that all these all these ancient religions that everyone worships they were just aliens or extra dimensional beings or beings from higher realities that were not actual gods. They're like us, but in higher dimensions or something, or parallel dimensions. People would lose their mind. It would just be pure, like it would be chaos. So a total breakdown of society all across the planet. For me, I've thought of this stuff a very long time ago, and I try to tell people this: if you think of scenarios and you leave the possibility open for anything to happen, you're not going to be shocked as much if something absurd happens or unlikely happens. Like, again, if aliens come down and land in front of me and be like, hey, come with us or something, like something out of a sci-fi movie, I'm not going to be shocked because, all right, well, that's possible in my mind. Even absurd things like a portal opens and this wizard comes out or this sorcerer and he's like, I need you to help me do this thing and I'll teach you magic. Like, it's absolutely absurd. But I keep this little tiny spot in the back of my mind of it's possible. I think it's very, very unlikely, but it's possible. So, I don't know. So, anybody says this drone technology doesn't understand that those things have been seen all throughout history. I mean, there's so many different theories you can get into. You can get into like really intense metaphysical, or I would say there's a term for it I'm missing. Think of like Dark City, that old movie. I think it was from the 90s, where basically these people are living in this city, and they a couple people wake up here and there, and they don't understand. Like, they have this the foggy memory, and some like a guy or two kind of like wake up and they figure out like something's wrong with the world. And as the movie progresses, it's a very old movie at this point, so I guess spoilers. It's like a 30-year-old movie, but come to find out there are these aliens that have taken humans, population of humans, and they've put them on this ship that's flying through space. It's basically like a flying museum or a nature preserve or something. I'm not sure what the purpose of the humans being captured by the aliens were. They're basically being like mind wiped. They would wipe their memory and reset and put into different lives and different scenarios with memories implanted and stuff. And it's a fascinating movie. So it's possible, I mean, I think it's very unlikely, but it's possible that our reality isn't real and that we're in some kind of really high-tech, higher civilization type of nature preserve or something. It could explain for some of these concepts of, oh, well, the nuclear weapons are being turned off, and well, maybe there is something out there, some civilization out there who's just like, okay, they're getting a little too ballsy, like, let's nerf them a little bit, or who knows? It could explain why our space technology is trash, and oh, we went to the moon. It's like, okay, but why haven't we advanced more than like that in so long, in over 50 years? It's like Elon Musk is the first one that's pushing the bounds and try to advance our rocket technology. So I'm just saying, like, it's an interesting theory. I don't know how true it is. I just kind of I'll leave that particular subject with this. Some people get really bad existential dread when they think about these concepts. Like, what do you mean? What if we're not real? What if we're in the dream of a god? Or, what if we're in a computer simulation? I'm like, okay, so what? Like, what does that change? Okay, you might learn the nature of your reality, but what does that change? You're still existing. You still exist. It is a gift that you exist. You have been gifted a thing. Now, you can get into well, what about people who know nothing but suffering their whole life? And we can have that's a separate conversation. But yeah, if we found out, oh, we're actually living in a super advanced, level 5 civilization computer simulation. Okay, cool. Doesn't change anything. All right, let's see. Okay, we're getting to the night vision part. This is right. Infused Decipher says, as someone who has used night vision before, as well as Lance Corporal, I can attest that nothing changes shape into a triangle into the sky when using them. And did he post that? Is there a hidden? Let me see. Is there a hidden chat somewhere? No. Oh, he redacted it probably. Okay, that's fine. But yeah, like that doesn't make sense to me when they were explaining that in congressional hearing. Oh yeah, the camera mixed with the night vision created the triangle shape, and I'm like, I never heard that in my life. I'm not like a photographer or a videographer or somebody who studies this stuff, but my understanding is when you have different things like that and different light sources, and maybe there's moisture or water, you might get like a circular object. It might blur the image, and you might get these really cool like circular blots, but a geometric shape, I've never heard of that in my life. Like a perfectly clear, equilateral triangle, like that literally makes no sense. Also spoke at length with somebody who was in the industry who invented the night vision goggles, and they say that the claim by the government was BS. Those are definitely triangular craft. Right. That's what I got out of that too. Like they're still gonna lie to us, but there were those reports just a couple years ago, and I think it was here in my region. We had one of the carriers off the coast. I don't know how many miles. 30, 40, 50 miles off the coast doing, training exercises, doing touch and goes for the jet craft at night. And they said these objects were floating, very close to the flight deck, over the ship, around the ship, and, clearly violating the airspace of the military craft, which you could be shot down for that. It's not even a question. If you get a private aircraft like a helicopter or a plane, and you go too close to a military aircraft or a military military anything, but a naval ship, they can shoot you out of the sky. They can blow you out of the water if you're a boat, all that stuff. That's legit. Personal experience, I was doing security at one of the shipyards last year, and we have military ships that we give security to while they're in dock getting repaired by civilian contractors. And there was a couple instances, like you hear on the radio, they're like, the ship is calling us, which we had a mobile patrol, boat patrol, saying, hey, can you take care of that boat that's coming over here? Like, this guy is fishing or something, but they're getting close. And it's basically like you could hear it in the voice, and then the response is like, okay, we're on it or whatever. But basically, like, yeah, they absolutely have the right. Like, people don't understand this. They have the right to blow you out of the water if you get too close. Like, you paddle boat close to a naval warship, they can shoot you dead. Like, it's not even a question. Now, typically they're not going to do that, but after the USS Cole incident, don't think they won't. Now I lost my train of thought. Like, I was giving that information and I totally lost the train of thought. Oh, right. We're talking about those drones that they didn't know what the hell they were because of the way they're flying erratically. There was no sound. They didn't hear buzzing of any propellers or anything, and they were flashing crazy lights. Yeah, that happened near me a couple years back, right off the coast of this area, Norfolk, Virginia Beach. And that drone incident. So I don't know what it is. It's interesting, and I'm glad the government is investigating this. But let's see. We can jump back and forth. You know how this is, but I want to get to the next one. This is. It's absolutely shocking to me. Is She-Hulk. And I understand you're like, okay, there's so many things going on right now. Why are we talking about this? I haven't talked about pop culture in a while. But this is important because it just shows the state of our culture has decayed. Okay. Now, I don't know. Can you see this? Can you see how bad the CGI of her face is? Like it's awful. This is She-Hulk. It's going to be a new show on Disney Plus. It just looks absolutely terrible. It's called She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Now, the whole trailer, I don't know that I can show... How about this? I will mute the audio, and you can kind of look at this. It's available online. You can watch it, but just... It's really bad. It's like... The way I can describe this is they took a concept from a cartoon for like teenagers or kids, and they transcribed like the same kind of script, the same dialogue, and decided to make it into a live action movie. Like the clips they're showing are just it's trash. It's so bad. They have these multi-million-dollar sets and all these really good effects and all this other stuff is going on, but then her CGI is complete trash. Even Bruce Banner's looks pretty bad. Like, look at this. Horrible, horrible CGI. It would have been better if they just painted her skin. I understand she's got she transforms, and did I just say transforms? She transforms and it's bigger, but you can do that with prosthetics and all kinds of other stuff, and they're just CGI'd it, and it looks terrible. Alright, I think that's it. So this is a point when it's like super feminist. Look at this crap. Okay, so this is let me stop on this screen. She was on Tinder or something, and she picked up a guy, literally picked up a guy. And the Twitter thread officially from Marvel, like I was looking in the replies, this particular thing is screenshotted, and people were like, degenerate comments. Like they like Amazonian women, big strong women. They're like, yeah, every man should be happy for this opportunity, and mommy, and they saying really gross, like these people have mommy issues. Okay, so why am I talking about this? I'm talking about She-Hulk, not so much that I care so deeply as, oh, it made me so mad. It's like, no, it's just trash. And I will tell you this, I feel like this will be one of the lowest rated Marvel films, or it's a TV show, apparently. Because it just looks so bad. It looks terrible. It's just god-awful. It's unwatchably bad. Now, die-hard She-Hulk fans, which apparently exist, they're going to like it. They're going to like whatever is produced. Me, personally, I look at this and I'm just... This shows that our culture has decayed. Our society is decaying. And we can't come up with interesting concepts anymore. And to me, She-Hulk, because I knew the character before, and there's a whole bunch of other female superheroes. They were created after the main superheroes became popular. And they're like, oh, like, you probably don't know, but Spider-Man, there's like 5 different kinds of Spider-Man friends, right? There's a Spider-Man group. There's like a Spider-Woman, there's a Spider-Boy, and there's all these other different, there's a Black Widow, which is like a female Spider-Man too. Not to be mistaken for Scarlett Johansson character. It's a Black Widow Spider-Man character. My point is, and same with like Superman. There's Superwoman, Superboy, Supergirl, like all these things. They spawned after the fact, and it doesn't feel genuine. It's like, okay, you've seen the Marvel stuff, you've seen like Bruce Banner and the Hulks, and I was never a fan, but then you're given this. It's like feminist Hulk, and I don't understand. Like, what are we supposed to get out of it? Is this geared towards women, or is this geared towards like incel men who have mommy issues? Like, literally. I'm not trying to be rude, but half of the comments on the Twitter thread about this were literally people like, "Oh my God, it's so sexy, it's so hot. This giant Amazonian woman, this huge, like, crush me, like death by snoo snoo," and the comments were just endless of that stuff. I mean, if you're into that, that's cool. I mean, that's your own personal interest. I just don't think everyone needs to hear about it. But to me, it's like we're living in idiocracy. Like, this isn't good content. Now, how you do a female superhero, a female character, would be like Wonder Woman, the Wonder Woman film. I thought was well done. I mean, there's still going to be little feminist little things in there. It's like that's kind of surrounding the character anyway. That's how it's always been. But and kind of why the character was created. I get that, but she's a strong woman that isn't masculine. There is a difference. Okay, there have been women warriors through history, so that makes sense. Okay, you can still be feminine and be a female warrior. I mean, there was female Celtic warriors. There was not in Rome, Carthage. I think in Carthage there was female warriors. I want to say Egypt might have had some too. But, there are multiple places around the world where there's female warriors. And they weren't necessarily masculine. They could still be feminine, but they knew how to fight in war. They can kick ass. This is not that. This is, I'm a ultra feminist woman who somehow gets Hulk's powers, and you're seeing this modern millennial feminist get superpowers, and it looks awkward. It does not look fun. Yeah, if Infuse Decipher, if you're posting links, some of them go through. I do see some links from people, but typically YouTube just auto blocks any links. They don't like it. Even other YouTube links, they don't like it. So, yeah, I again, I'm not like super concerned about this particular show. It's that how they're making these shows. Like, other failures would be Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was bad. It was a trash movie. Visually stunning. Like, I guess if you were, I guess I'd say I'd enjoy like watching the space battles and the space technology and the superpowers and stuff. That's cool. But the character herself was a bad guy. She was a villain. Only up until the end is she like all of a sudden the hero. Like, she was literally on, like, the Nazis, the space Nazi side. And she's killing, I don't know what the equivalent would be, like, hunting down gypsies or hunting down Palestinians and killing them. Like, that's what her job was. She was in this elite military unit, and they were killing these nomadic people who were basically forcibly nomadic. They were fleeing because of this giant space empire was killing people. My point is, Captain Marvel was really bad. Like, it was not a good movie. She was a bad character. She was a bad person. She was a villain, and it was portrayed as little girls should be this, and it's like, well, she was beating up somebody because they made a comment, a sexist comment. I think it was a spiker guy said, "You should smile, sweetheart," or something. Something stupid, and then she's like, "Give me your clothes." Kind of like a nod to the Terminator or something. Like, well, in the first Terminator, he was a bad guy. The Terminator was not a superhero. He was the villain. So I just, I don't know. Whoever writes this stuff is clearly not paying attention to what people want. They're not paying attention to what people want. And again, I think it shows how society is decaying. It's cultural decay and stagnation. What new things have we had in the last 5 years? And I'm not just saying like pop culture and stuff, like music too. When I turn on and listen to modern music, it's just okay. There's a pretty good beat. Okay, it's like okay, I can see why people are addicted to this. It's like okay, good beat, and then you hear the vocals are heavily edited and auto-tuned or like just heavily produced. It's not real. Very few of these artists are real, and you're like okay, and then like the lyrics are totally degenerate and debauched. It's like okay, we've always had dirty music. There's a lady from the 1920s that I like to cite. I cannot remember her name for the life of me, but it's this black musician, and she was kind of underground. And I just remember one of the lines is just I don't even want to repeat it. But she says, "I have nipples on my titties as big as my thumb." And it's super graphic. Like it's just we've had dirty music forever. My point is that was clearly for adults, and everyone knew. Okay, you can go and to this bar, or this club, or whatever, and they'd have this musician performing, and sometimes it'd be nasty. Okay, people knew that. But now what we have is this culture of kids can watch this. Kids can listen to music. You have kids in elementary school listening to Cardi B and Nicki Minaj, and it's filthy. It's absolutely filthy. Now there's pop songs that they maybe don't cuss very much or something like that, but then you still listen to the lyrics. Like I'd say like Katy Perry, I don't follow her music, but I would imagine she doesn't cuss a lot. But she's still talking about sex. She's still talking about like sex and drinking, and I'm sure there might be even occasional drug use references, and that's the mainstream now. And I'm concerned. Then we see movies like this or TV shows like this, and I wonder what happened to like the old wholesome content. Like I understand, like this is not geared toward kids. Let's be very clear about this. This image right here showing you like this is a sex scene. Like she was swiping through Tinder, found a man that she liked. He liked her. You know, she took him home and literally picked him up. Like picked him up and took him home. Like literally, it's right there. She's picking him up and taking him to the bedroom. That's what they're doing. This is a sex scene that they're alluding to. I don't know if they actually show it. Disney is pretty tame for that. Like they don't really do the graphic stuff. But my point is, that's not really something you would show to kids. That's what we call sexually suggestive. Jumping around in the comments, but it seems our society has divided into two cultures because we have two groups defining different meaning of freedom. I agree. We do define freedom as freedom from tyrannical control over our lives, or freedom to live to peak freedom to the point of arbitrary freedom. Yes. I would probably like that's about it's a lot of freedom. That's like the Kamala Harris speech where the paragraph she talked about was like working together. She said working together and she said working together like 5 times in one paragraph. We're working together for the goal of working together and to do this thing and working together. Like she literally did it. That's what that sounds like to me. But I agree. I would say that it's kind of more like authoritarian versus authoritarian freedom, if that's even a thing. Authoritarian freedom versus libertarian freedom. Libertarian freedom is more geared towards individualism and personal responsibility, versus the authoritarian freedom would be like the state or the collective. It's very collectivist, can limit some of your freedoms because they think it will maximize freedoms. If we stop bad actors from doing bad things, then we'll get more freedom that way somehow. And it's like, I can kind of see it, kind of see what they're saying. I don't really necessarily agree with that. It's hard because in a society, by very nature of a society, there is going to have to be compromise. Obviously, like the bigger the society, the more impossible it is to manage. And I think that's part of our problem is when you have too many different demographics, this is doomed to failure, right? The only reason China and India and Pakistan, these countries with massive amounts of people living in them, the only reason that they are stable internally, as far as they don't have even half, 25% of what we're dealing with here in America, is because they are racially homogenous. They are a racially homogenous society. And I think that's really the big difference between the two cultures. Now, here in America, obviously we have like 5-6 major racial groups. And it's hard for us to get along only because of a lot of these forced policies, and they're forcing these tensions under the guise of, this is for the greater good. This is for the greater good. These racial sensitivity classes and meetings and anti-racism, this and that, and it's like, I understand the concept of what they are trying to do, assuming it's in good faith, because I think there are good faith actors who are doing horrible things like this, racist things, in my opinion. Positive racism, I think, is how you would call it. Negative racism would be like the Klan members or neo-Nazis hating on everyone else. Positive racism is basically saying like, oh, those poor black people, they need our help. That would be like positive racism. It's still racism. My point is, I think that the only major reason, again, that our society is facing these issues are because of how racially diverse we are. And I'm not saying that in a sense like, oh, racial diversity is bad. It's like, no, I mean, I think in the 90s was a good place. Like, we still had problems. We still had racial tensions. There's still things we could have worked on, but we went from one extreme to the other. You went from maximum racism to, we got to this good peak area where maybe we could keep going up and we can like actually become, good equal partners in all ways. And then now we're going this other direction, this other extreme, where now it's white people who are bad because of their ancestors. Just, all this stuff doesn't make sense. We're making it worse. Then you have regional problems. What happens in the West Coast is totally different from what happens in the Gulf of Mexico. Your Texas, your Louisiana, you have Alabama down there too. Yeah. It's a different region versus, and then the Northeast. They're different regions. They have different cultures. Then add politics, then add religion, and it's just like, we're doomed for failure. We have too many demographics here in this country to be, 330 million people here. I think that's including the probably 10 million plus illegal immigrants. We can't possibly all work together in this way with this kind of tension. So it's problematic for sure. It makes me wonder. Again, I really do think that we're headed for some kind of a civil war. I don't think it's going to be this long nationwide conflict. I think it would be regional. You're going to have cities who start some shit with rural areas, or most of it is political, of course. Democrats and their hysteria against Republicans, thinking that the Republicans are just Nazis now. Like, do we have Democrats saying that they're basically like, if you're a Republican, you're a racist Nazi. It's like, okay, well, you can't really live in a society if you think that, and that's not in good faith. That's not being honest. That's delusional. I have seen the exact opposite of that. That it's the Democrats who are behaving like racist. I almost said something. Definitely will get you banned from YouTube. They're acting like racist fascists. We'll say that. When Republicans are the moderates right now, it makes no sense. None of this. Like I was telling somebody, trying to explain this to somebody, that I'm having my friends and family who are almost entirely like Democrats. They're messaging, or I'm messaging them. We're going back and forth in messages and phone calls, and they're reaching out to me, and they're confused about what's happening. They turned on the news, and they're like, this is psychotic what I'm hearing. This is not normal. They said, I was reading a social media post, and this person was crazy. Or I turned on NPR, and they were saying, like, really weird stuff. And I'm like, yes. One of my good friends, childhood friends, still I talk to, try to do twice a month. He lives in Portland, Oregon. He's been there for 10 years. And he messaged me and he said, I don't remember what he was talking about. He said, I'm so confused right now, but I'm starting to wake up. And I said, I have been trying to tell you this stuff for years now. And he said, yes, I know, for years. But he's waking up. Because he's starting to realize, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's extremist. He's living in the extremist of the street. He's in ground zero. He's in the singularity of the insanity. Portland is one of the main hubs of that. And he's starting to realize, this is the same guy who told me, like, I don't walk downtown because he didn't say Antifa or BLM, but he was like, he was describing them. He knows, I knew exactly what he's talking about. He would hesitate to say the terms, but what he's describing was Antifa. And he's just like, it's not safe anymore. They're going to attack me just because I'm white. And because I'm not with them, doing Antifa things, they're going to assume that I'm automatically a threat to whatever, despite the fact that his wife is mixed race. She's a quarter black. He is the most liberal person I probably know in all my friend groups. But yeah, even he is like, this is not right. This is not sustainable. In fact, let me see if I can pull up. I'm not going to like publish any of his information or anything, but I just want to see what he said. I'm trying to figure it out. Oh, I was talking about the mass shooting in Buffalo, or he asked me about it, I think, and he framed it in a way as like, well, what about black people, or black people are getting, shot everywhere and stuff. And let's see, he gets talked out of killing himself, and he gets arrested. And then his shitty manifesto, turns out he is a mess. Like, I understand what he's saying, but and I shared, well, yeah, well, okay, the Waukesha guy who plowed through mostly like 95% white people at that Christmas Day parade, he was arrested. He was taken into custody. Police didn't just automatically open fire on him. You had the New York City subway shooter, the guy who shot up mostly Asian people, I think. There might have been a Hispanic and a white guy there too, but that subway train happened to just be mostly Asians, I think. That black guy who did that, he was arrested and didn't get killed. So I mean, there are plenty of instances of this, and it's just a false narrative that the left is given, that black people are just being hunted and constantly killed, and they're never taken into custody. It's like that's a narrative that the propagandists tell people, and they believe it because, you know, they're like, why would they? People, this is the thing I try to tell people: there's no point in getting angry. There's no point in getting angry when you're talking to a real, regular person, because you don't know where they're at, what the information they're getting, who they're getting. Why would an average person be like, the media is lying to me? You know, this authoritative source is lying to me. Why would they assume that? Because they're coming in good faith. They are good people, and they don't understand what you're talking about. You have to be slow with it. You can't just come out like an Alex Jones and be like, they're turning the freaking frogs gay, like that whole scenario. And it's like, okay, slow down, because most people are not at your level and they think you're crazy when you say stuff like that. If you explain it and be like, oh, they're putting atrazine in these pesticides, or this pesticide called atrazine actually is known to genetically affect amphibians, and it can actually cause amphibians to change their genetic sex. Their chromosomes can change. Had he said that, it would be totally different, right? So it's how you approach people. So I was explaining this to my friend, and I showed him the list of mass shootings, because he again, he's not at this level like where I'm always watching this stuff and looking at this stuff. And I showed him that, and you're not going to really be able to see it, but it's a list of all the mass shootings last week. Like every day had either one or multiple mass shootings all throughout the country. And part of this is, again, it's all politics. Oh, we'll hyper focus on the white supremacist shooter, but you're completely ignoring 95% of mass shootings are black people. But you don't want to say that because that doesn't serve your politics. And then you're not considering these type of these black mass shootings as mass shootings because this is gang related, it's crime related. It's like, well, they're all crimes, right? It's a crime to go into a supermarket and shoot up everybody. That's a crime. Okay? Oh, well, it's not gang related. It's like, okay, so what? It's still a mass shooting. These are mass shootings. There are more mass shootings in the inner city black neighborhoods than any other demographic. 95% of mass shootings. That's me throwing a number out there, but if somebody else has those numbers, please give them to me. Like, we have to be real about this stuff and stop lying. Like, we're never going to get anywhere. We're not going to progress if we're pretending like, oh, black people are angels and you can't criticize them. It's like, dude, I don't give a fuck about people's races. I care about what's true and what's honest, and then we can move forward and figure this stuff out together. But pretending like white people are the biggest threat ever, it's like, no. Most of the mass shootings are happening by black people. They're shooting people up. They got mad. They got into an argument or a fight. It's like an honor thing. These are fighting words. Somebody dissed you. Like, I'm not trying to sound like lame or whatever, or trying to be funny. They're like, this is reality. Oh, you stepped on my Jordans. Now I'm going to start opening fire. And because I don't know how to fucking use a gun, I'm just shooting wildly sideways, and you're just spraying into a crowd of people. And then there's ricochet and all this. That's why they're mass shootings. It's not this one person I have a problem with, beef with, I shoot him dead. They're shooting wildly because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. And then they hit all these people and it becomes a mass shooting. There is gang-related stuff, but a lot of it is literally just, oh, you looked at my girlfriend wrong. Keep your eyes to yourself kind of stuff. Literally, it's honor fights, honor shootings. And then there are crime-related shootings. Now, what we can say, if you want to categorize the black mass shootings, it's like, well, it's very, very rare, extremely rare, almost non-existent, to where black people just go onto a shooting rampage and are shooting random people intentionally. because they snapped and are angry or psychotic. That almost never happens. That's true. The only one I could really think of would be the DC sniper back in, separate from the recent one, the DC sniper. I think it was in the 2000s where there was two of them. It was an older guy in his 40s, and then he took this younger boy, early 20s, I think. He might have still been a teenager even, and was shooting up the DC area. They called him the DC sniper. That was probably more terror related. I believe Islam was involved with that. But yeah, I mean this stuff is super important. It's super important, and people don't understand this because they're living their lives. They're normal people living their lives. We are abnormal that we're in the news and following the news and the politics as closely as we do. Most people don't. They go to work, they come home, they kiss their wife and kids, they have barbecues or grills on the weekends, they go to the pool, they go to the beach, they go to the movies, and they're not following this stuff, so they have no clue. When you tell them even a fraction of what's been happening over the last few years, even the last decade, they're just in shock. They're like, what? That's not real. Stop it. They're not doing that. And I'm like, yes, they are. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And you need to know that this stuff is happening. But it's hard. It's hard to try to live your life without thinking about this stuff if you are cursed with knowledge, as I like to call it. Because when you're cursed with knowledge, you can't just forget it. You see these things, you know these things are happening, you can't forget it. And you feel like you're compelled to do something about it. Another topic, I'm having a hard time, and I mean this in all sincerity, I'm having a hard time finding the pandemic treaty of 2022. Does anyone know a source of where I can pull up the pandemic treaty? Like actually read it. I can't find it. I see a lot of articles about it. Obviously, Snopes and all these people are trying to claim like, oh, what people are saying about it isn't real. Let's see, the Lancet. What is the date on this? May 16th. Okay, so this is post-pandemic. Okay, well, I'll give you a quick overview of what it is, and what people are saying it is. But I'm trying to find it because I can't confirm what people are claiming about it. So the pandemic, I think it's called the Pandemic Treaty, is being pushed by the World Health Organization, and I'm looking at it everywhere. Pandemic Treaty. Basically, my understanding, again, I can't find it, I can't read it, is that it would allow the World Health Organization to take control over the world. Anyone who is a treaty member, take control of those nations and direct those nations on how to deal with future pandemics. Again, I don't have the full thing to pull up to look at, because the second I do, I absolutely will go into details about this. But people are claiming that it's basically losing our sovereignty, and they would be able to initiate lockdowns, enforce mask mandates, vaccine mandates. They'd basically be overriding the Constitution, because most of the world does not even come close to protecting the rights of the citizens like America does, despite all of our problems. Now, everything I keep finding on this does not show the actual text of the treaty or of the proposal. It is quick little summaries and overviews, and that's my problem. Where is it? Where can I find it? And Google is no help, because it just shows me trash information. It doesn't say specifically where to find this and where to read this at. It's giving me everything but. International Pandemic Treaty. Yeah, I mean, it's scary, though, because obviously it was, I remember probably 2000s when a lot of people were talking about the United Nations and how the United Nations is trying to take sovereignty from America, and we're like one of the last holdouts and stuff like that. And I was very resistant. I'm like, yeah, but that'll never happen here. And, I've learned a lot over the years. I've changed and evolved. I mean, the United Nations got rid of the death penalty, like international law. Like, death penalty isn't an option for international crimes. So if Putin is somehow captured and, tried for war crimes, death penalty is not an option anymore, which, okay, seems a little weird to me. But they're also very big on banning guns internationally. They don't like guns. They're huge on abortion. They think abortion is fantastic. It's like it's very obvious what side is in control here. There is no like pushback really. It's like, oh, well, the UN is liberal essentially. They're leftists. World Health Organization is liberals. They're leftists. World Economic Forum they're leftists. They're liberals. All these different things you can go into. There are very few big, huge international organizations that do any kind of pushback. They almost all work together. So it's concerning, because for me, a layman, I don't have time to sit here 8 hours a day. I don't have 8 hours a day to sit here and look up all of this information and try to figure out everything. And I know most of you don't either. This is the problem. They do a lot of the stuff in public sight, but the gritty details are in back rooms. They're in closed meetings. So we know general overviews and summaries of their agendas, but we don't really know the gritty details, and there's no transparency for these things. Like how do you convince the king to give up power that they have seized? I'm trying to and I'm asking this as a serious question, because this is an international problem. I have been hyper-focused on America, and I know a lot of people have been internationally focused for a very long time, like looking at the UN and the crazy things that, the World Health Organization, all these big organizations, big international things. And I've been hyper-focused on America because this is what I care about. I live here. And that was one of my problems, my blind sides, is I keep forgetting that there's this huge other, situation happening. They're influencing America, these international groups and organizations. So I'll say this. If this is true, if what people are saying about this pandemic health treaty or whatever, pandemic response treaty is true, then this is another attempt to take away the sovereignty of America from Americans. Like, Americans would not vote on this. This would be, I believe, Congress would vote on it directly, and then the president would sign it. I don't think the president can do it themselves. I'm pretty sure that's a congressional issue, just to sign treaties. authorized by Congress and then signed by the president. I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, we have international billionaires and autocrats and bureaucrats, not bureaucrats, oligarchs, who have more power than presidents. I mean, this is a true story. Like, if you think that Elon Musk being allegedly worth $400 billion makes him the most powerful man in the world, you're not paying attention, because it's all speculative wealth. His actual wealth would be like what he owns in assets. You could add up his physical, tangible assets like properties, houses, cars, whatever, stuff like that. Gold, he might have gold reserves somewhere or something. And his bank account, that's his net worth. His stock is speculative wealth, okay? And then how much influence does he have around the world? Well, I could tell you Bill Gates is far more powerful than Elon Musk. Like, not even a question. And way more influence. So money isn't everything. It can help a lot in your goals, like Elon Musk to buy Twitter, which he's still having issues with. But influence is what is important. But all right, I think I have gone long enough here. We talked about a lot of topics. I got my fix for ranting and raving about quite a few things today, and I hope you got something out of this. I always appreciate everyone for coming by and chatting. It's very important to have that conversation. Oh, here's the one I missed. He said if you search Robert Hastings and the UFA nuclear connection on YouTube, it's the video by a channel named Red Panda Koala? A must see. Oh, you said Red Panda Koala. Okay. Fair enough. All right. So that's really it. So thank you so much for watching, if indeed you still are. And I will see you all next time.